for Scott about this. Can anybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is Michael Moss. I'm an artist from Fort Lauderdale, and Scott has, and I've worked on, he's been a support of every project I've done here, grant-based projects with Broward Cultural Division. And I work with kids almost exclusively in reality. So my immediate, I was trying not to be selfish. My almost immediate panic attack was that, like, how am I going to do the thing? I actually just immediately started thinking about it, like, why don't I just not deal with it? So I didn't deal with it for a little while. When I kind of woke up, I said, okay, well, I'm going online. I'm going to put I was halfway there already. I love this, but like I couldn't get anybody to join me there. Now we all have to be there. So I undid all my privacy settings, and I threw myself as like a guinea pig or a canary in the coal mine. And I haven't done Facebook in 10 years. And I started uploading new content and opening the channel for my program, which is Art Box Clubs, which I did a origami paper airplane science STEM project last year. And this year I'm doing animation. And what I was doing, working with the Old Dillard Foundation, we did a drumming seminar there. And I was like, let's just start with beats design. All the artists seem to want to show off all their different talents. So we'll start with a beat design with the kids, and then they're going to animate that beat. And then that's pretty much where they start, and everyone can do whatever they want. So everyone can focus on the animation, or they can focus on the music, and it's going to put musicians and animators together. So how can I do this online? I got my Facebook channels working, Art Box Clubs. I got my Instagram channel working. I'm following Nikki Lopez and Darius Daughtry's shows, Art Serve. I've been going, and I've been starting watch parties, and I've been filming myself live, Facebook Live. Like I hacked. I mean, I'm not saying I broke into it, but to me, hacking is not breaking into. Hacking means using something for its other than its intended purpose, I think is what it's about. So I'm using Facebook as a production studio to collaborate with people. So they have to watch. We have to watch each other and then send each other files. But in the meantime, I can write a little something of whatever, a poem, a song, upload it, and I don't need to get into a Zoom meeting or worry about, I just came from another meeting, spent the entire time waiting for the moderator to come. So as we get over this, I had so much anxiety. I'm a person who's happy with 6 computers and 5 telephones at once. And I have 3 that I'm using now for everything. And the anxiety over that of charging it up and dealing with my family, my kids, not that there's a problem, but it's just like, that's more important than any of this right now. So really for me, chargers and background air conditioners, I've set up a studio in my backyard and I'm filming as often as I can. And it's been like therapy for me, but at the same time, it's telling all my friends on Facebook that I've got a channel that's doing something different, and I'm sick of these rectangles, flat faces staring into the thing. I design environments, like spaces for learning and moving around and experiencing. There was a thing at Fat Village with a 3D. It was a full circle theater. You had to walk in the middle, like a black box theater. And I was like, can I borrow your screen? Because I've been making 3D. I've been making surround. You know, if you have a 3D camera, if you have a surround camera. So I put everything online. I'm burying my soul out there, making a fool of myself. But I'm looking for artists and educators and poets and musicians and people who are already doing this well. And sort of, instead of just staying in one environment like this meeting, we have to like expand and make it an experience, because it's going to be done from the home studio. And I think so far it looks to me like the poets and musicians are pretty happy. They're like having time to go get on their computers and work on stuff. Filmmakers are like I'm going to start editing all the films I was working on. I had no time to do any of that. So then Tara Chadwick just called me before I got on and asked me to if I could get her some clips, and I hope it's not breaking privacy. I'm sure she'd be happy to know that people know that she's working on it. But, and that's it.
Michael, hey, is there a question?
Yeah, the question is.
I've been waiting for the question.
Okay, the question is this. I think it sounds, how are you going to communicate the message of all this information in so many different environments? It's too much for people to be jumping, for my parents to be jumping from Instagram to Facebook and have 6 telephones and have to put on makeup. Fine for young people. But like, I think there's a certain amount of people who are just going to get on and collaborate. How, and I say this in regards to, I'm trying to understand exactly how placemaking is. I'm a bit of an outsider here. So I think as an advantage in this case, when I see 9 points and like the declarations and stuff, this is I totally understand it intellectually and I love it and I'm totally support it, but it just feels like a democratic convention, like a platform that is not like it was written on PowerPoint, I think you're asking for artists to get involved. I think this is the moment where you need some creative ways of conveying these messages. And how is it that you plan to convey this in a simple way so that it's not so confrontational? When I have brought these issues up, like with people, it seems like the idea of equity and sustainability, it sounds so right to people who have studied it, but when you start talking to people who don't know what it is, they get pissed off because you're basically saying you have to all change the way you've ever done anything, and that's like, you're kind of like, yeah, and that's very confrontational to like 70% of the population. So as an artist, how do you want me, Scott, this is the question, how do you want me to approach this? Because I've gotten really kind of either blank stares or kind of an aggressive, like, no, I don't want to talk about like racial inequity and like that the train tracks are a line that, you know, and that Fat Village is there. You've given me, I've tried using your shtick and it works on me. You got me, but like to a neutral party or like somebody who isn't familiar with placemaking or doesn't care about urban planning or arts, or they don't, you know, my art program is not for the arts, but this is for everybody. I think we need something clearer. I don't quite understand what this is, what it all is, and what you're asking of me. So that's my question. What is it you're asking of me as an obviously, like at this point, artist who wants to contribute? I don't know what I can do in this case, and I want to do something.
Michael, let me interject this, and then Scott can add. You're crushing it from where we're going. You're there.
Okay.
And you have to pull us along a bit, okay, to get a deeper understanding of how that communication actually plays out in the real world. But you're already there.
Yeah, it's very stressful because like usually you just turn and they say, oh, here's the message of the year, and everybody follows the thing. Well, I think what you're saying though is this bottom up, top down stuff really makes sense to me, because the top down has abdicated its power. Our governors, so many governors and the executive branches around the country, from corporate branch to public, you know, executive branches, are just basically, they've given up on doing the work of the job. And I don't see how, if they've said we hate Mexican people, we hate Muslims, and now we're going to go after our domestic poor and whatever, there was always this term, the domestic third world. So if that's the shithole country, how can we not say that that is intentional? They're going to intentionally let these people die. This is not like, like my dad said something the other day, let's get the patriotic Americans we're going to pull at their heartstrings. It's like, I'm tired of that conversation at this point. And I want to know, I just don't want to talk about hoping that somebody comes around. This is a case of these people in this room, people like Darius Daughtry, who steps up and sends a poem out every day, displacing the bullshit media with real stuff. And I see hope in like rebuilding this stuff. Everything has to be reprogrammed and built online, but nobody could do that alone. And I think there's an advantage. Whoever gets on first, we could actually build the thing instead of it being a mishmash, like the way South Florida was built in the reality is like, as this stuff's going up, it could be sustainable and urban farms. There's a vision there. But I think you have to accept at a certain level. There's also an aggressive counter. They don't want it. They want it. They're going to be fighting. It's not just like incompetence. It's not just failure. It's intentionally letting the morons let the system just sort of drain dry and let the people being left out in the cold are going to die. That's the point. I mean, that's the fucking point is, excuse me, I'm sorry. It's like, the point is to be as mean and cruel as possible. That's really like the creative exercise. It's a brilliant artistic exercise, but I just don't think it's one that should be carried out. And at every turn is how can we be mean and how can we be cruel? So I just don't see it's like we have to as artists, you know, we need to, we're all bad business people, and you all know what you want to do with the building of the people. We need to somehow merge the brain of like the creative side and the people who know, like Scott, who is like straddles that world. So he's like, can help us, like bridge us. We need I think probably everybody in this meeting needs to be some kind of bridge, but I don't know what message to take back to my community because they're hostile to it.
Well,
Michael, have you seen the 6 hats? I'm sorry, y'all. I have to say this. Michael, have you seen the 6 hats? Now we go to the 6 hats.
Hats, okay.
Michael, can we zoom in on the 6 hats? The 6 thinking
thanks,
hats?
Brie.
I'm very new to this, so
and so let's talk about
blind.
action plans. The way that we approach our leaders when we talk about a grassroots approach. What makes us hippies so good at getting things done is being able to read people's energy. We understand how and what people want and what they're there for. Whether their intent is good or bad, we are good at understanding and taking an empathetic approach towards a social movement. So the connectivity is us, the people who want to have the conversation, the people who don't want to just talk about plans, but really want to make the action steps towards that. So that's being able to read people. So we talk about the 6 thinking hats. There are 6 thinking hats on here that describe the type of people are in the world. So I don't know if anybody has watched The Office. I don't know if anybody has watched Park, but some of our most favorite shows in the media have shown us how people have had to coexist, although they don't see eye to eye socially and they don't communicate the same way. So being able to understand how people are and what they want from us as artists, as creatives, and how we can put together our little dots. I tell people all the time, it's, you know, sometimes being a dot connector is not enough. You have to be a dot maker. And that's what creatives do. That's what artists do. That's what teachers do. They do things because they have to be done and not necessarily because they're being done. So even Earth Day, look at Earth Day, right? Somebody got together and they were like, well, here's what we're going to do. So the first thing I believe in is being able to read the people that we're talking to. So when you meet your governors, you meet your local legislators, you meet people who are in these different spots. Even if you host a tea party, if you are the person who hosts a brunch, if you're the person who hosts a dinner party at your home with people that you know have similar interests, just to have the conversation, the most powerful thing Chattanooga has shown me is how people from different organizations can run together to make something happen on a small scale at a 15-person dinner party before it ever hits anyone's board tables, because the 15 people are going to have to go out and get 15 more people. And that's the thing. So if each person goes out and gets their board, now we have 12 participants this Zoom call. So if every one person goes and grabs their 10 people that they know are critical key players to this movement, that's how the civil rights movement was done. That's how the abolitionist movement was done. That's how the women's feminist movement was done. Every great movement in time, activism is something I'm very passionate about. So I've had to study how people get things done and how they get to the real root of our social issues. Studying our local legislatures, getting together an action point of what your community needs is the second thing. A lot of people don't have a good idea of what their community needs. So then when you get the people on the phone that you've been waiting to talk to for 3 years, you really don't know what you're asking for. Now you've had everybody together and everyone's been organized enough to have a conversation, but also hippies are very bad at over talking. So we have a lot of fun talking in theory. So you get on the phone with folks, you need to have numbers worked out, and that's why it's good to have the other hats. So when you talk about the other hats, having the black hat there, having the fact hat there, the people who can think about information, people who can think about analyzing what that means on a larger scale. What are the numbers? Can I get the Excel sheet? The people who think very analytical, you need those people on your team. You need the people who are going to then say, like you, Michael, the green hat, which is creativity, who's going to say, well, how does this look like and how can we convey the message? A lot of those times, those are marketing and media people who can really spread a message and get a lot of people. You go into feeling people and people who literally only think on the surface level. And I'm not gonna take this conversation over, but having somebody to represent each one of those hats is the key. Okay, because If you don't do that, then you're looking at a lot of people who aren't able to communicate. When you have someone who kind of stands in the middle of all of those and can see wherever, it's like building your chessboard. You know where all your, if you cannot play chess unless you know what all your pieces do. And I'll leave it there.
Are you saying to do that your own yourself, or to actually find a different person to do those things?
You have to
Something.
find the persons. You have
A
to
real
find
person.
the person. You think
Okay.
about what you want to implement. So if there's
Yeah.
something that's very small, whether that be, so we talk about during COVID, what does that look like for our children? And Monica, I'm going to jump into my